All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Tuesday again, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. Going to get to a couple more game breakdowns in today's episode. The Golden State Warriors notched their third road win of the season as they are undefeated on the road. A big change from last year over the New Orleans Pelicans. And then we're going to take a little deep dive into the early season stretch from the Pelicans. And then the Atlanta Hawks have a wild second half comeback fueled by dominant defense from all of their perimeter athletes as they come back and take it to the Minnesota Timberwolves to notch their second win of the season. We haven't talked Timberwolves yet this year either, so we're going to talk a little bit about them and their early season as well. And then I have one mailbag question for the end of the show as well. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. We're trying to get this thing off the ground. I would sincerely appreciate if you guys would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight, social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. That's where I'm doing video content as well as show announcements throughout the year. And then last but not least, I need more mailbag questions. Only got one for this show. So keep dropping mailbag questions in the comments and we'll get to them in videos throughout the rest of the week. All right, let's talk some basketball. So Draymond Green, turns out a perfect type of defender to guard Zion Williamson. Did a really nice job, especially on Zion's crazy rip-throughs and attempts to bully his way to the basket, of keeping his body in front, knocking him off balance with that low center of gravity and strength that he has, and then swiping away from the basketball, causing Zion to have an uncharacteristic night from the standpoint of losing control and turning the basketball over. Having Draymond as a weapon, again, because you kind of saw it in that bench shift when Dario Saric came in, and then it was like Zion layup, Zion layup, Zion layup. And it's like, oh, actually, this is what it looks like for the vast majority of the league. And if you remember, like Zion, when he's healthy, he gets to the rim and finishes at a higher rate even than guys who are stereotypically at the top of the league, guys like Giannis and LeBron. He's usually even a level above them when he's healthy. He's the most gifted basket attacker in the NBA right now, and Zion was able to kind of thwart that. And when you combine that with Brandon Ingram being out of the equation, and then the job that a plethora of different Warriors perimeter defenders did on CJ McCollum, they did a nice job keeping the Pelicans out of rhythm throughout the night. On the other end of the floor, the Pelicans were hard blitzing Steph like crazy because Steph lit them on fire to start the game. We're going to talk about this more in a minute, but Steph is like playing at the highest level that I've seen him play at his time in the NBA right now. And we're going to talk about what that means and what that could potentially lead to here in a minute. But he was shooting like crazy to start the game, just cooking everybody. Didn't matter who it was. They even tried Dyson Daniels, one of their better perimeter defenders, on him off the bench, and he just started cooking him too. And so they had to just start crazy blitzing him on pick and roll. Now, the Pelicans have a lot of athletes, and they did a pretty nice job of making it really difficult for Steph to hit the pocket pass. And so in a lot of cases, what they were doing, which I thought was a really interesting counter, is Steph would just make the swing pass to the wing, and then the swing pass from the wing, that player would make the pass to the roll man coming down the lane as they would kick out to the weak side shooter. I actually clipped an example of that play that you guys can see on my Twitter feed where Steph makes that swing pass. I think it was Looney on the wing who then hit Draymond coming downhill, who then hit Gary Payton in the corner, if I remember correctly. Then in the second quarter, they started spamming that Gary Payton pick and roll with Steph like they did against the Lakers, and they had a lot of success there as well. It was just a steady diet of Steph pick and roll, picking them apart. I think Steph is up around like 1.26 points per pick and roll so far. He's Steph pick and rolls have generated 67 points so far, which is the fourth most in the NBA, and he's been way more efficient than the three guys that are ahead of him. And he's running more pick and rolls than he has in years past traditionally, especially during the regular season. But he's just so damn good at it now, and I'm kind of pro leaning into that a little bit more because it's a counter they have to go to when they get to the later rounds of the postseason anyway. And then the bench was awesome. Once again, they were plus 15 without Steph again. Trayce Jackson-Davis got a lot of minutes. Jonathan Kuminga was out of the lineup, and Klay Thompson was out of the lineup, so there were some front court minutes available. Also, just Saric was having a lot of trouble guarding Zion, so that was an issue. So, again, that's kind of the matchup flexibility that you haven't had in years past. Moses Moody played really well, again, starting for Klay Thompson, 13 points and 4 assists with 0 turnovers. He's become one of their more reliable point of attack defenders, too. And remember, his thing is like he's actually a good physical point of attack defender. He just commits too many fouls, and I thought it was a solid night to put up 0 fouls in 21 minutes, especially with the defensive effort that he was putting up. But let's make no mistake about it. Like, obviously the bench helps. Obviously some key guys are stepping up, but Steph is playing every bit as well as anybody else in the league right now, potentially the highest level that I've ever seen him play. You know, it's funny. It kind of, I was looking at it because Steph just kind of seems like he's in command of his game at a level that I've never seen from him in his career. It just seems like he's so unbelievably confident. There's no coverage that flusters him. There's no defender that keeps him off balance. He just seems in complete command of his game at an even higher level than I'm used to seeing from him. And he's 35 years old. And I thought it was interesting because we've seen some examples recently of players kind of like peaking in a big way around that age 35, 36 season. And like I've got a buddy of mine, a guy named Josh Kolash. He actually took over as the head coach at the high school that I coach at. And then him and I play in this this men's league here in town that him and I have won almost every time over the course of the last couple of years. And we've been playing together for a while. And he just recently has like gone up a huge level. I don't know if he's just been in the gym more or if it's just like his mastery of the game, but it's been fun playing with him because he's playing at the highest level I've ever seen Josh play at. And he just turned 36. And it kind of feels like that mid-30s is like that time where the mind is at its absolute peak while the body still has something left to give. And I mean, I remember LeBron James in his 2018 season, 35 years old. I've always said to LeBron fans, 35 is like that 35 2018 season, in my opinion, was the best version of LeBron we ever saw. That was the best offensive version of LeBron who still had the ability to hit the defensive playmaking possessions that he needed to as an athlete. If you remember, that was the year he dunked all over Yusuf Nurkic. So it was like peak LeBron athleticism mixed with like his peak shot making, mixed with like his peak ability to see the floor. It kind of feels like Steph's kind of slotting into that same time frame here at age 35, right? He's averaging 34 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists so far through 4 games, 76% true shooting, 71% effective field goal percentage on jump shots. Every Steph Curry jump shot this season is worth 1.41 points. That's insane. 86% effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot jump shots. When he is unguarded, a 107% effective field goal percentage. On pull-up jump shots, he's right where he was last year, 61%, which was what led the entire league, 61% in effective field goal percentage. And he's shooting 71% at the rim, which is completely off the charts for guard. In the play type data, I went over pick and rolls earlier, 1.26 points per possession, basically the best combination of volume and efficiency in the league right now. 15 points on 14 ISOs and outrageously efficient coming off of off-ball screens. He's shooting 9 for 12 in those situations, and a Steph off-ball screen is now worth 2.1 points per possession so far through 4 games. I said in my season preview, if you guys remember, that I viewed Steph as one of the highest value MVP candidates in terms of betting odds. And it comes down to a bunch of different things, but the gist of it is he hasn't won one since 2016. So there's like a 7-year lull in there in terms of optimism from the voters. You know how voters get when they've had a recent MVP pick, right? He has the playoff success to back it up. He was the finals MVP literally 16 months ago. So you've got that piece of it. And then he doesn't play alongside another star. As a matter of fact, Wiggins was the second best player on the team in 2023, and he's been a shell of himself so far this season. There's other guys playing well for sure, but like the gist of it is it's Steph and a bunch of really good basketball players, no legitimate superstar next to him. And that kind of, to me, is the perfect recipe for an MVP campaign. They just had to be able to win on the road, which they couldn't do last year because they were already one of the best teams in the league at home last year. You add in the road element. If they just could win about 50% of their games on the road, they can win 50 games. If they win 50 games, there's no reason in the world why Steph Curry can't win MVP. I don't have the odds in front of me, but my guess is he's still somewhat of a long shot. And I think that that's a good betting opportunity. I just look at some of the bigger names up front. The Mavs are winning at a super high rate. They're a team that we need to cover here in the next couple of days. And maybe Maybe Luka can enter into that conversation, but like I tend to think in terms of the best combination of like surrounding circumstance, potential team success, and top tier play with playoff resume to kind of back it up. Steph is kind of shaping up for what could be an MVP season. Just in general, surrounding the Warriors, a bunch of key markers are going well for them. Young players making significant improvements, the bench lineups being able to float and succeed in games thanks to the Chris Paul acquisition and some really high-level defensive play from the role players off the bench, the ability to win games on the road, and then Steph Curry playing at that MVP level. All of those things, to me, are big hallmarks that make this team a lot more similar to the 2022 team that won the title than the 2023 team, which was largely a disappointment. So Warriors are in a good spot so far through 4 games. On the Pelicans front, Zion struggled with Draymond. And I get it. Draymond's one of the best defensive players in the world. But just in general, he hasn't looked quite as explosive off the bounce as he was last year. His scoring volume is down from where you'd expect it to be, especially with Trey Murphy out of the lineup and them needing him to be more creative and aggressive offensively. He's just not beating people off the dribble as smoothly as he used to. Now, I tend to think that it's probably a lot of just getting back into the NBA swing of things, and I tend to think he'll be fine in the big picture. But to start the season, it's just not the same Zion that we're accustomed to seeing. With Brandon Ingram out, they just really struggled to generate quality shots. CJ McCollum was way off. He was 7 for 21 from the field in this game, was taking some really tough shots, and I thought missing some reads. He was forcing the action a little bit. It's just, again, if they don't have all of those guys clicking at a high level, they're just not good enough offensively in the half court. And then the Trey Murphy acquisition is a legitimate loss. He was one of their most aggressive spot-up shooters. He brought the ability to shoot out to like 26, 27 feet, which was important for their spacing, which has been an issue here early on. I just, again, I don't want to really evaluate the Pelicans within the big picture until they get everybody back and they're 100% healthy. They were 2-0 before this game and wins over Memphis and New York, who were a couple of playoff teams from last year. But let's just take a look real quick at some of their numbers through 3 games and what they've been doing well and what they haven't been doing well. So they're 28th in offense. Again, missing Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram out last game. Zion not quite operating at the same level you're hoping for. CJ's been okay in the big picture. They're 24th in three-pointers made and 24th in three-point percentage. Jordan Hawkins really seemed to kind of catch some daylight in last night's game, get some confidence. He's shooting 40% from 3 here in the early season. Matt Ryan has had like these brief stretches, particularly in the first half of games where he shot the ball really well. He actually looks a lot more mobile in terms of just getting to his spots and like using escape dribbles and things like that. He seems a lot more mobile now than he did when he was with the Lakers when I was covering him at the beginning of last season. So they bring some of that more aggressive three-point shooting. Trey Murphy coming back should help a lot. They are 7th in defensive rating so far this year. 30th in rebounding percentage. This is the crazy part. And again, like 7th in defense, that's something to be encouraged about. You expect this team to be a top 10 defense with Herb Jones as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. The additional length and athleticism they have, their base coverages and their ability to keep Jonas Valanciunas around the rim. But they're just having a hell of a time on the glass. 30th in rebounding percentage. They were 5th last year. This was a top 5 rebounding team last year who is now currently dead last in rebounding. And again, that's where I think Trey Murphy and B.I. being out last night in particular hurt them in their big picture numbers because Golden State out-rebounded them 64-39. And again, like in the modern NBA with all of the long-distance jump shooting, there's a lot more long rebounds. And so wing athleticism and ball pursuit is one of the most important elements of defensive rebounding in a way that it didn't used to be, where it was more controlled by the big guys inside, right? And so that data is a little bit jumbled by that awful night against the Warriors, but obviously in the big picture, they need to rebound better. Even with B.I. in the lineup, that starting lineup of Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and Jonas Valanciunas is minus 8.3 net so far this season. Only a 98.4 offensive rating. Their defense has been solid with that group, a 107 defensive rating, which is solid. Nothing to write home about, but okay. But they're just struggling to score the basketball. And again, like if Zion can't get back to where he was, in general, their spacing just looks like shit right now. I don't know what they do in the big picture with that Zion Jonas front court because they tend to get in each other's way quite a bit. And I know they want Jonas to shoot the three, and he's taking it when he's open. But it's just one of those things where even when he makes a couple, it's not necessarily a good thing because he's not being guarded out there. And at the end of the day, that matters way more than the actual shot result, because Jonas is not going to take 10 threes a game. He's going to take, a handful of them, right? And that handful and him making them, let's say he takes 3 or 4 a game and he scores 4 or 5 points a game on them, that's not going to swing the scoreboard. What's going to matter is in the 100 or so possessions, how is he being guarded when he's on the floor? Spacing is an issue right now. And like if Zion can't just bulldoze his way to the rim the way that he's used to doing, that could be a problem in the bigger picture. A lineup I'd like to see more of, this Kira Lewis, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, and Larry Nance lineup. They've played 15 possessions so far. It's just a ton of perimeter defense next to B.I. and Herb Jones as wing defenders with a more athletic center on the floor. Dyson Daniels can really get into people at the point of attack. Kira Lewis is freakishly quick on the perimeter. When you combine that with the rangy athleticism to rotate on the backside with Larry Nance as just like a more versatile defensive player than Jonas Valanciunas is, they are plus 20 net rating in 15 possessions against small sample size, 93 defensive rating. And that's that combination of perimeter defense with like rangy ability to rotate, right? I was sifting through the lineup data this morning, and most of their core lineups are not playing particularly well. And ironically, the lineups that have done well in decent sample sizes, a lot of them were just like little short spurts from the bench group against the Warriors last night with groups of guys that probably aren't going to play in the bigger picture. Like I don't think Jordan Hawkins or Matt Ryan's going to be in the rotation when Trey Murphy and Brandon Ingram are back in the lineup, right? When Jose Alvarado's back in the lineup. And so it's good to get looks at those guys and to see what they're good at and where they can help you. But at the end of the day, right now, there's not a ton of encouraging lineup data coming out of the Pelicans, even with their 2-1 record. But they have a lot that they can get better at, right? Trey Murphy coming back, Zion getting back to form, in general, just shooting the ball better. And then they have to rebound at the level that we're accustomed to seeing from them in the big picture. I'm a believer in what this team is capable of. The only thing from a structure standpoint I don't like is the Jonas Valanciunas piece. I just think in general, the floor speed can be an issue, like him getting up and down the floor in transition. The fact that teams don't guard him when he goes out to the three-point line. He's a post-up offensive player who attacks the offensive glass a lot. And so there's advantages there when you're leaning into his play style. But when you're trying to play spread pick and roll basketball and you're trying to get Zion involved with his fake dribble handoffs and his clear ISOs and stuff like that, it's harder for him to get to work with that fit. So in the big picture, that's the one thing I don't like. But I do love the perimeter core, and I do think they can be very good when they're healthy and when they're in rhythm. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub. And with DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at an even bigger basketball win. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter. Basketball's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code HOOPS. The crown is yours.
For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month. It's called Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions that you already love, right? Like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, my fave, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay. Verizon.com/plusplay to save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only now. Limited time only.
All right, moving on to Wolves-Hawks. Tale of two halves in this one. The Wolves won the first half 79-60. And then the Hawks came back and won the second half 67-34 to notch a double-digit victory to get to 2-2. In the first half, the Wolves were just cooking on offense. Ant was doing everything well. He was playing like a bona fide superstar in the first half. He was hitting pull-up threes. He was hitting post-up fadeaways. He was driving and kicking for threes. Anthony Edwards had 5 assists in the first quarter, which was the first time he's ever done that in his career. He had this like ridiculous Jordan-esque reverse layup where he planted right, left, and then like went up and down and under onto the right side of the basket. He was absolutely destroying the Hawks. Naz Reid got going. He hit 3 3-point shots. He was attacking closeouts. He was cutting out of the weak side corner for lob dunks. He looked great. Rudy Gobert dominated the second quarter defensively. You look up, they're up 79-60. And it, and then on the other end, like, and we've talked about it with the Hawks, Trae Young and Dejounte Murray just haven't been playing that well, and they didn't play particularly well in the first half. They're pretty mediocre. Then you go a few minutes into the second half, and then something just clicks into place for the Hawks on both ends of the floor. They ratcheted up defensively. Jalen Johnson, like, kind of locked up karl-Anthony Towns, kept him in front. Wasn't susceptible to Cat's bully ball attack. Then he did the same thing to Naz Reid when he checked into the game. I thought Dejounte Murray did an awesome job keeping Ant in front and baiting him into pull-up jump shots, which he ended up missing in the second half. And then all of their athletes all over the floor were flying around in rotation, flying in passing lanes, getting out in transition, and then running out the other way for dunks and layups. I talked about this in my season preview for the Hawks. If you guys remember, they were 19th last year in transition frequency. They are second in transition frequency this year. I talked in the season preview, this is an athletic team. They need to look to avoid the half court, get out and run as much as possible, especially off their defense. And they've been doing that at a really high level so far to start this season. And then in the half court, both Trae Young and Dejounte, but mostly Dejounte, just took it to the Wolves on the not even like in screening actions for the most part. A lot of it was just taking it to their best perimeter defenders by beating them off the bounce. Like, Dejounte Murray was barbecuing Anthony Edwards. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but Ant reaches too much and gets himself out of position and doesn't do himself any favors. But Dejounte Murray was using pump fakes and spin moves and counter moves to just get around Anthony Edwards and get to his spots. He got his pull-up jump shot going. He got to the rim. He ended up finishing the game with 41 points. He was incredible. He was plus 25 in this game. And then Trae Young was pretty good too. He was beating Jaden McDaniels off the dribble and getting the defense into rotation. Now, Jaden kind of tightened that up in the fourth quarter, but at that point, they had already kind of gotten control of the game. But it was nothing fancy. It was just brute force. Like, Trae Young and Dejounte won the shit out of their matchups in that second quarter on both ends of the floor. And we're going to talk about the Hawks defense, like, because it's becoming a cultural thing in these short bursts. Like, in that second half run, even Trae Young was like sprinting over the top of screens. There was a play where Anthony Edwards got him on a switch and tried to post him up, and he fought in front and he fronted the post and denied the post entry. Like, Trae Young was legitimately giving a shit on the defensive end of the floor. And then just in general, the flying around in rotation, all of their athleticism on the floor. When you have Dejounte Murray out there with DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson, and then with Saddiq Bey coming in and AJ Griffin coming in, like, they are just super fast and rangy and athletic. And then their front court players in Okongwu and Capella are also pretty athletic, versatile players that can cover ground. And so they're capable of being an elite defensive team. Like, and we're like, in the big picture, this has been a run. This is a rundown of the Hawks defense so far this year. They had a 112 defensive rating against Charlotte. They lost. A 119 defensive rating against the Knicks. They lost. First half against the Bucks, an 89 defensive rating, and they won. They had a 129 defensive rating in the second half, but they had built such a big lead, they were able to weather that. First half against the Timberwolves, a 161 defensive rating. Found themselves down by 21 points. But second half against the Timberwolves, a 68 defensive rating, and they won the half by 33 points and won the game. So you can kind of see a clear formula here. When they lean into their defensive potential and they make that the identity of their team, they get out and transition more. It invigorates. Like, literally, Dejounte Murray got going in his rhythm in transition. Like, that's the formula. Defend, get out and run, find the easy shots when you're stuck in the half court and in rhythm, and Trae Young and Dejounte Murray can take you home. And then one other thing I noticed on the offensive end of the floor, They used a lot of Jalen Johnson, Saddiq Bey, and DeAndre Hunter as screeners, which is something they didn't used to do because of spacing concerns. When you had John Collins and Clint Capella on the floor, you almost had to bring one of them into screen because you couldn't have two non-shooters off the ball in your two-man game. It just made it too easy to guard. But now they're actually running a lot of these like a forward to guard screen actions with a wing that can shoot, and they're having success there. All three of them, Jalen Johnson, Saddiq Bey, and DeAndre Hunter, each of them have hit 2 pick-and-pop jump shots from the three-point line already this season. That's turned into a significant chunk of their offense. And again, those like little ghost screens or pick-and-pops, they also are a lot harder to guard at the point of attack, and they allow Dejounte Murray and Trae Young to get downhill. And like their offense will go up a level as soon as Trae Young and Dejounte Murray start being consistently good on that end. But I predicted that the Hawks would go up a level this year. And again, it's been mixed results through 4 games, but I do think that potential has clearly been on display with what they've done on the defensive end of the floor. Moving on to the Wolves, this loss drops them to 1-2. They haven't been good enough on either end of the floor. Jaden McDaniels being out has definitely hurt them. He's been their best perimeter defender for a couple years now, one of the top 2 or 3 of them in the league, to be honest. And it was his first game back, and you could tell he's getting his legs underneath him. He looked good offensively. He was, 5 for 6 from the field and 2 for 2 from 3. Definitely struggled a little bit keeping Trae Young in front in the third quarter, but then you saw him kind of get his like second wind or whatever in that fourth quarter and got some stops there. But like Nickeil Alexander-Walker wasn't good defensively in that Hawks game. Anthony Edwards has been pretty bad defensively. He reaches in way too much. He takes way too many defensive possessions off. He's having an amazing offensive season so far. 25, 7, and 5, 57% true shooting the jump shot extremely well, 67% effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shot or on jumpers, 71% on pull-up jumpers. But he's only 8 for 18 at the rim, which is to be expected, right? This is a team that has poor spacing. Rudy Gobert, another game where just like, it's amazing how many times like he'll catch underneath the basket and not score. Like he has stone hands and then he just can't make shots at the rim. He's only 15 for 25 at the rim. That would be bad for a wing, let alone a center, right? And so it's a lot easier for teams to help off of him and recover, which hurts their spacing. So like, I'm not super concerned about the rim finishing for Ant. I know that's something that's going to be good for him in the long run. The playmaking has been at a higher level than we're accustomed to seeing from him. But that defensive end is a huge part of this team's identity. This team is not good enough offensively, especially when you're playing guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who can go ice cold shooting, Anthony Edwards, who can settle for a lot of jump shots, Rudy Gobert, bad hands, bad finishing, Kyle Anderson, a guy who struggles to space the floor from the three-point line. Like, with that kind of lineup, you're never going to be a great offensive team. What you are is you're a grinded out rock fight team. You're supposed to be a top 5 defense that strangles teams, gets out in transition, and relies on Anthony Edwards' bully ball, basically, to win games on the offensive end of the floor. That's what they need to do. And so, like, early on in the season, you know, again, all my optimism around the Wolves was surrounding the defensive end, and they just haven't been good enough on that end. 22nd in offense. Again, that Gobert piece I just talked about with his hands. Cat's not playing well either. He's averaging 16 points a game, 37% from the field, 24% from 3. He's shooting 2 for 14 on spot-up possessions. That's really hurting their spacing as well. 4 for 21 on jump shots in total so far this season. So Cat obviously has got to play better as well. I think Jaden needs to almost be more aggressive offensively with some of the other issues they're having on that end. If Jaden starts being more aggressive offensively, gets his legs back underneath him, if Karl Towns starts playing more like himself on the offensive end, if Anthony Edwards locks in on the perimeter, having Jaden back out there because he wasn't there for the first 2 games, I think they're going to be fine in the big picture, but it's definitely been a disappointing first 3 games on the Wolves front. All right, one mailbag question, then we'll get out of here today. A little shorter show. I guess we did 2 shows today, though. How pumped are you for the in-season tournament? I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's such a great idea. As we get closer to it, I am getting excited about it. I think the single elimination format is going to bring out some really fun NBA games. The biggest question is, can we get people to care? Now, I think a big part of it is going to be like the fact that the games matter for the regular season. That matters. That'll help in terms of just keeping a baseline level of effort, right? And if we see the stars give a shit, and I think a strong indicator would be seeing a good team finish, one of our contenders, right? If one of our top 6 teams, 7 teams, if you include the Clippers after the Harden trade, if one of those teams wins it and one of the best players in the world plays well and ends up hoisting the trophy, I think that adds legitimacy to it. I'm excited and keeping an open mind. I still don't think it was the best idea in the world. I would have always, like, you guys know where I stand on this stuff. Shorten the season. Go down to 66 games. It adds 20% urgency. It adds rest to prevent guys from having to play 4 times a week, which inevitably leads to stars missing games. Ratings were down in the first week of the NBA, and I think a big part of it is we just saw an 82-game season where it really didn't matter because an 8 seed made it to the finals and a 7 seed made it to the conference finals. And so you're seeing teams like just understand in the big picture that the regular season doesn't matter that much. And so I think paring it down to 66 games would improve star participation, improve urgency, and lead to at least a 20% increase in revenue surrounding each individual game. But that's just my take on it. Obviously, I'm not an economist as well, so it could be more complicated than that. But like that's the way I would go. That said, it already happened. Trying to keep an open mind about it. I think it could be really cool watching NBA players play in a single elimination format. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. We are going to be back. There's 3 games tonight. I'm going to hit, maybe 2 of them tomorrow during the day. And then we've got our nighttime slate with the jam-packed, like there's 2 ESPN games and there's a bunch of other games on Wednesday night that we're going to hit. And then we're going to go Thursday and Friday as well. So I will see you guys tomorrow and a lot of more basketball to get to this week.